Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're over on the YouTube account and we're going to be breaking down the Beast tier list. Now overall, the Beast tier list is incredibly subjective on the Beast essentially that you have built. But when we're looking at the big picture of the Beast, I'm going to go through the tier list. We're going to break out exactly what Beasts are seeing the most play within AFK Arena. And of course, when it comes to the Resonance, so this is probably one of the biggest things that I overlooked as a player in AFK Arena. We've been playing this for 5 years, but getting the Beast all the way up to Beast Resonance 18 is literally a game changer in every aspect. When you start looking at the Curse Realm, Nightmare Corridor, Treasure Scramble, Campaign Formation, Temple Rift, every single place in AFK Arena, you are going to use Beasts. And of course, with the majority of the content, it is multiple teams, which means you're going to be using at least 5 Beasts for a majority of these teams, which makes it very important to build these up and build these up in a very particular manner. Now, as you can see here, we're sitting on like almost 7,000 baits. I have been building them up a little bit higher, over 20. Anything over 18 is just going to give you stats and only stats exclusively. So let's hop over. I want to bring up this tier list and I want to run through it with you and show you kind of what I'm thinking and where we're going with this. So let's hop over and I'll go ahead, drop my camera out. And here is the tier list. So looking at the tier list, it looks kind of basic overall, but when you start really breaking it down, when you look at utility-wise, and really the two that are the very, very top is number one, we have Panda Dumpty, which is coming in at number one. The ability to not only do some crowd control, also provide some buffs in there, also provide some shielding effect in there. The Panda is seeing a ton of use in AFK Arena, and we're seeing the Panda used in every game mode. We're seeing it in a multitude of formations. Anywhere that we are seeing, again, kind of the formations, the Panda is being used. Now, we've seen it in the Belinda combo. We've seen it with the Awakened version of Athalia. We've seen it with Liberta. We've seen it pretty much wherever it can be used, it has been used. And then, of course, very, very kind of exact same identical tier is looking at the level 18 Slumbering Seal. Now, of course, when it comes to the Slumbering Seal, it is the 6th hero within formation, doing an incredible amount of damage. We have the stall team, again, PvP-wise, that it's working incredibly well. But when you start looking, again, at a multitude of different game modes, this seal is still, honestly, one of the number one beasts that we see within AFK Arena. And then, of course, the level 18 Talisman. Now, of course, the big thing with Talisman is when you start building him up, you do get a crowd control aspect, which can really interrupt the Graveborns and the Hypo heroes, which again, in a multitude of game modes, it really becomes the best primary beast within a lot of different formations because of the ability to not only buff up some damage, do some damage, but also the ability to do some strong crowd control within the teams. And the Fox Fatale is the exact same thing. Why we're seeing all of these beasts up in that SSS tier is for the simple fact it provides crowd control, which allows you to not only do an incredible amount of damage, but also when you start looking at tower progression, campaign progression, the ability to crowd control the heroes is really why you live and how you'll live. So again, when you start thinking big picture of the beasts that you need to build, these are the 4 primary beasts that you want to build really to that SS tier. And of course, even falling into this S tier. And again, when you start looking at a multiple of game modes, there are usually 5+ teams within here, depending on really what you're running. But starting down here, and this is where the beast and really the tier list gets a little bit complicated, because when you're building these out, looking at the Owl, again, a lot of utility in a ton of different game modes, still falling in the top tier, especially for the haste buff and the aura that the beast provides, still does work incredibly well. Same with the Wing Lion. We see a ton of utility out of the Wing Lion. And again, we're still looking at level 18 beasts. You have to remember that because, again, when you look at the levels and you look at the skills and abilities that the beasts do possess, it is really based and can differ greatly from beast to beast. So as we continue moving down here, now the next one would actually fall in here would be the Slumbering Seal at beast level 15. Again, looking at the utility wise. So prioritizing, and really the first beast that you need to build up and need to build out in its entirety is the Slumbering Seal. Again, because it does have the most utility for the levels that you do gain within there. And of course, the Panda, like I said earlier, 18 does incredibly well. Then we look at some of our other, like Oris right here. Again, does incredibly well. Still a little bit newer to the beast, but again, utility-wise, we're starting to see a lot of use with this beast. We're also seeing a lot of the haste buff that is provided from this beast. I'm definitely rising up with the utility, which is the same with Ice Crown. Now, funny enough, you can see, guys, these are its eyes, its mouth, its little tiny hands. I didn't realize until I was actually doing this tier list that Ice Crown is an actual like little character, almost like a Marshmallow Ice character that we do have in the game. And again, looking in game, you can't really see it, but looking here, you can definitely see it, which is really cool. But this hero, or excuse me, this beast specifically is the crowd control monster. When you look at the ability to win within the treasure scramble, it is going to be imperative. When you look at a multitude of crowd control in a bunch of different game modes, it works incredibly well within a bunch of different game modes. And of course, looking at some of the formations, like with the Awakened version of Lucius, who is a little bit more squishy than we see with the Awakened heroes, this provides the crowd control that we have in there. And of course, looking at Rem and Amelia, I'm doing incredibly well with Amelia's crowd control. It can be a big difference with this beast. And then we have the Shroom Spooter in here. This is another one with the taunting effect that this has, allows the Awakened version of Belinda Comp to live a lot longer because you have kind of an off tank with the spider. And of course, looking at the level 18 is where we are looking to build these beasts. Now, when you start looking at some of the other formations, even getting the owl to 15 makes a big difference. Getting the owl to 18 makes a big difference, which is the same with Eris right here. Getting Eris to 15, then getting Eris to 18 is really the progression. That is why I said when you start looking at the beasts in their entirety and when you start looking at the ability to build them up, I focused 100% all in on beasts. We went through all of the baits. I did the Noble Society. We picked out all the baits we could get out of the Misty Valley. Every single place that I could get baits, I picked up baits out of every event. We picked up a bunch of baits until we got to 18. Once we did hit that Beast Resonance 18, doesn't really make a huge difference other than a little bit of stats after that, but absolutely want to be a really big priority building these heroes up. And even when you look at a few, like looking at the Ice Crown, when you look at level 12, when you look at 15, when you look at 18, hero there, the beast still does very well in a multitude of game modes. There's a lot of beasts that really don't perform well until you get them built up. And again, there are a few, just looking at the Winged Lion, looking at Eris, looking at the Ice Crown, that does still do incredibly well, even at a lower beast level. And then, of course, we start looking kind of into the S tier. Now, this is the Rock Lizard. Now, the Rock Lizard, of course, was always used with the Awakened version of Belinda. And then the Panda came out. And once the Panda came out, it seems like that was the primary one. We've also seen, again, some crowd control from the Ice Crown. But overall, it seems like this one losing a little bit of utility. We had the big shielding aspect. Now, of course, when you start looking at the Rock Lizard, level 12 or Beast Resonance 12 is really ideal. Still does work incredibly well. Even looking at Beast level 9, still can do incredibly well in there. And then you get into a few like the Savage Souffle. Now, unfortunately, Savage Souffle a little bit further down because it's kind of showing up as a lot more kind of as a niche beast that we might see in a very one-off, crowd control scenario. But it's not a primary beast that we're seeing at all used in a couple different places. And of course, these beasts used to be best. I mean, just like we see with heroes with the power creep, we see the exact same thing when it does come to the beast. I mean, Blade Ridge, even again with that Awakened version of Belinda, Blade Ridge used to be absolutely number one, amplifying the damage that the hero has done. Power creep, unfortunately, has kind of taken it off. Even looking at the Moth, when we look at, single target burst damage, when the Awakened version of Thane was huge and used really everywhere, this was really the hero. We've seen a little bit of a resurgence with the Awakened version of Athalia, just being able to buff up Athalia and doing more damage in there. Unfortunately, at this point, again, kind of short of a niche formation. Not going to see a ton of utility. And then Belbella, not really used very much at all. I don't even know the last time I've used this one. And again, it was used at level 18 and only at level 18, where if you didn't have this beast built up to 18, there was zero utility and zero logic to even build the beast at all, which again, just super niche at this point. Same here with the turnip. It really, again, kind of niche. I don't even know that anywhere that the turnip, I'm drawing the blank on the name, but the turnip is actually being used. Then we have, of course, the 3 core pets, or the starter beast that you start with. These are just the rare ones that are not really being used anywhere. Then looking at the Fire Breather, looking at the Ice Beast, both of them, again, were super short-lived, especially even at release. Once we started getting more beasts, they were replaced. And then Vespero, unfortunately, short of the little bit of a resurgence with the awakened version of Chimera, hasn't really seen a ton of utility in there, which unfortunately, that is kind of what we're seeing. This one didn't have really a spot. So even looking in here, when you think of beast resonance, getting them to 12, getting them to 15, getting them to 18, if you're following and really focusing on these SS and these triple S tier beasts, these are the ones that are going to have the most bang for your buck when you're building up the panda and building up the seal to 18, when you're building up, the owl, when you're building up talisman to 18. It is going to be a big game changer when you're starting to build these much, much higher. And it is really impressive to see how when you start getting them built up in their entirety, and again, I was notorious, and I did this myself, was forgetting to build out the beast or really building out that beast resonance. 18, I was focused a lot more on building out my heroes. Once I turned my focus and I started building out the beast, it was a game changer. I started scoring better in every single aspect of AFK Arena, which was kind of crazy to think that they had that much of an impact, but they do in their entirety. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and as always, thank you guys for watching.